The night my life finally shattered, I stood in the rain outside my parents' house with a 9-year-old boy gripping my hand and $23 in my pocket. I wasn't there to ask for money. I was there to ask for one night of shelter. Rain hammered my jacket and ran into my eyes as I stared at the glossy mahogany door I'd walked through 1,000 times as a kid. The porch light glowed warm, like the house was inviting someone in. Just not me. My backpack pulled at my shoulders, stuffed with wrinkled clothes, Thomas's school notebook, and a charger that barely worked. Thomas pressed into my side, shivering so hard his teeth clicked. "Uncle Alex," he whispered, "are you sure it's okay to be here?" "It has to be," I said, forcing my voice to be steady. "We don't have anywhere else to go tonight." We'd walked 3 hours from the bus stop after the landlord tossed our bags onto the curb and told us to leave before dark. No discussion, no second chance. Just a door closing, like I'd seen too many times lately. A year ago, my life still made sense. I worked as an industrial electrician at a manufacturing plant. It wasn't fancy, but it was stable. I could pay rent, I could plan a weekend, I could breathe. Amy liked nice things, nice dinners, nice clothes, nice trips. I believed if I worked hard enough, I could give her what she wanted. Then the recession hit. Overtime disappeared. Shifts got cut. Men with decades at the plant got let go one by one. When it finally reached me, the manager slid paperwork across his desk without meeting my eyes. "It's not personal. We're downsizing." I walked out with a cardboard box and a feeling that the ground under my life had shifted. Amy played supportive at first. She hugged me, called it temporary, and said we were a team. But her late nights got later. Her phone buzzed more. She started coming home smelling like perfume that wasn't hers. When I found the messages from Tyler, it didn't feel like a normal argument. It felt like a door slamming somewhere deep inside me. When I confronted her, she didn't apologize. "You're overreacting," she snapped. "Do you know how exhausting it is living with someone who can't provide? I'm tired of dragging dead weight. And you insisted on taking in that stray kid." "That kid has a name," I shouted, shaking for the first time in our marriage. "It's Thomas." Thomas came into my life 2 years earlier, when I found him crumpled on my doorstep after a long shift. I almost stepped over him because I thought he was a pile of clothes. Then he moved. A boy, maybe 7, soaked through, bruised, and barely breathing. His lips had a bluish tint. One shoelace was missing. A dark bruise spread across his cheek, like someone had grabbed him too hard. "Hey," I said, dropping to my knees. "Can you hear me?" His eyes fluttered, but he couldn't speak. I carried him inside without thinking. Wrapped him in a blanket. Put soup on the stove with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Amy came out, saw him, froze. "Alex, who is that?" "He was on our doorstep. He's freezing. We can't leave him outside." She hesitated, but she helped me warm him up. When his eyes finally opened fully, they darted around the room like he expected danger to follow him inside. I crouched beside him. "You're safe. I'm Alex. What's your name?" He swallowed. "Thomas." "Where are your parents? Where do you live?" He stared at his hands. "I don't know." Over the next few days, he gave me pieces, like his brain had the story but refused to hand it over all at once. A big house, a father in suits, falling asleep in a big bed and waking up under a bridge, a car door slamming, a shadow leaning over him. No last name, no address, just Thomas. I took him to child services, filled out forms, answered questions, let them inspect my small apartment. They checked databases and missing child reports. Nothing matched. We can place him in emergency foster care, the worker said, or you can act as temporary guardian until we have more information. Thomas sat on the chair with his legs swinging above the floor, gripping a paper cup of water like it might vanish. His eyes stayed on me, scared, but begging. "I'll take him," I said. After that, my life stopped being mine. I made breakfast for two. I walked him to school, helped with homework, learned he liked drawing rockets and hated peas, learned he woke from nightmares sometimes, whispering, "Uncle Alex, don't go." "I'm not going anywhere," I told him, even when I wasn't sure. Amy tolerated him at first, thinking it was temporary, but as months passed, her patience drained away. Every bill, every late fee, every sacrifice became a complaint. When she left, she didn't just walk out. She stripped the place, savings, furniture, half the appliances. She left a note saying, she refused to go down with a sinking ship. After that, it was just me and Thomas. I took any work I could find. Thomas never complained. He'd push his bread toward me and say he was full. When the landlord finally evicted us, I called everyone I knew. Most didn't answer. The few who did had nothing to offer. That's how we ended up in front of my parents' house in the storm. I raised my fist and knocked. Footsteps, a lock. The door opened. My father stood there dry and warm in a pressed shirt, looking at me like I was an unexpected problem. His eyes flicked from my face to my backpack to Thomas. "Alex," he said, "what are you doing here?" I tried to speak, but my rehearsed words tangled. Behind him, I saw warm light, a leather couch, my mother moving closer. "Please," I managed. "We just need a place to stay. One night. I lost my job. The apartment's gone. Amy's gone. This is Thomas." Thomas looked up at him with wide, frightened eyes. For a split second, I thought blood would matter. My father's jaw tightened, and he said no. Most people will watch this entire story and never subscribe. That means they'll miss the next betrayed husband, the next destroyed family, the next revenge story. If you're already invested in Alex and Thomas, subscribe now, because there are more stories like this, and you'll never see them without hitting that button. The no became a locked door behind us. My mother didn't step into the rain. She stayed just inside the doorway and looked at Thomas like he was a stain I'd tracked in. "You can't bring this here," she said. "This is a child," I replied, trying to keep my voice low. "He's freezing." My father didn't move. "Call a shelter. They're full." "Call the state," he said flatly. "Stop collecting problems and expecting us to solve them." Thomas flinched. His grip tightened like he was holding on to the last safe thing he had. I didn't beg again. Pride didn't matter, but Thomas did, and I wouldn't let him see me break in front of people who didn't care. The door closed. The lock clicked. Thomas stared at it for a long moment. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked. "No," I said. "No, buddy." We walked until the neighborhood glow faded and the city swallowed us. The bus station became our shelter because it was open and mostly dry. The lights never shut off. The air smelled like stale coffee and diesel. We learned a routine fast. Don't stay in one place too long. Don't draw attention. Don't argue with guards. I set my phone alarm for 3 a.m. When it buzzed, we'd move benches like we were waiting for a bus. Survival had rules. During the day, I chased cash work, hauling debris for $80, unloading trucks, digging trenches until my shoulders burned. Anything that paid the same day. Every morning, I bought Thomas a breakfast sandwich and orange juice, $6. It felt reckless, but I did it anyway. He needed food more than I needed pride. I'd tell myself I'd eat later, even when later became whatever he doesn't finish. Keeping him in school was another fight. I held on to an address that wouldn't raise questions and prayed nobody checked too hard. I couldn't take the last normal thing away from him. Other people at the station noticed Thomas. A woman left granola bars like she was feeding a stray cat, quietly, without asking questions. An older man bought him hot chocolate and pretended he'd ordered the wrong size. I hated accepting help. Thomas didn't. "If someone offers kindness," he said once, "we can just say thank you. 3 weeks of that life will teach you things. How fast money disappears, how loud silence can be, how a child can learn to act older because he has to." Tuesday afternoon, a contractor named Miguel watched me work. "You got electrical experience?" he asked. 5 years industrial," I said. He nodded. "Commercial renovation is starting. Monday, 3 months of steady income. 25 an hour, cash. You show up on time, work hard, keep your head down, you'll be fine." Those words felt like oxygen. "I'll be there," I said immediately. That night, I bought burgers and fries, a small celebration. Thomas ate like he didn't trust the food to stay on the table. "Why are you smiling?" he asked. "Because we might finally get a room again," I told him. "A real one." His face lit up in a way that made my chest ache. "Can I put my drawings on the wall?" "All of them." We slept deeper that night, until Thomas woke up gasping and crying. At first I thought he was choking. His eyes were wide, unfocused, like he was seeing something else. "The car," he whispered. "The bridge. I remember." A guard started walking our way. I pulled Thomas close, trying to calm him before we got kicked out. "You're safe," I whispered. "I'm right here." Thomas shook hard. He grabbed me getting off the school bus. He had a scar on his hand. "Right here." He touched between his thumb and forefinger. "Like a burn." My blood turned cold. "What did he say?" "He said my dad didn't want me," Thomas whispered. "That I was being sent away. He drove me near the water and left me there." I held him tighter. Rage and helplessness twisted together. Someone did this on purpose. And if Thomas was remembering the scar now, it meant the past wasn't buried. It was waking up. You felt that, right? The injustice. But here's the truth. If you don't subscribe, you'll miss the next story, the next betrayal, the next revenge. This channel posts stories like this every day, but you won't see them unless you subscribe. Don't miss out. Hit that button now. Saturday morning, I took Thomas to St. Michael's community lunch. Food mattered more than pride. The church basement smelled like steam trays and donated vegetables. Thomas held his tray carefully, eyes wide at the hot meal like it was something rare. We sat near the wall. He ate slowly, savoring it. That's when I heard her. "Alex?" I froze and turned. Amy stood there holding a tray, looking polished and expensive like she'd never missed a meal in her life. Tyler stood beside her, watching me like he was entertained. Amy's eyes moved over me, my worn clothes, my tired face, and she didn't hide her reaction. "You look terrible," she said loudly. "Are you actually homeless?" "We're getting by," I answered. Her gaze snapped to Thomas. "You're still dragging that kid around? I heard you got evicted. This is why I left, Alex. You don't know how to survive." Thomas put his fork down. "Uncle Alex takes care of me better than anyone," he said quietly. "He's the best person I know." Amy laughed like kindness was a joke. "If he was so great, you wouldn't be eating here." Tyler smirked. "Come on, let's sit somewhere else." I stood up, took Thomas's hand. "We're leaving." Amy called after me. You could have had a real life. You chose this. Outside, Thomas looked up at me. Was that her? The one who left? I nodded. I'm glad she's gone, he said. She doesn't deserve you. I hugged him quickly, because if I didn't, I might fall apart. That evening, back at the bus station, a small crowd gathered by the TV near the ticket counter. Thomas did homework on the bench, pencil moving steadily, like numbers could make the world make sense. The anchor's voice caught my attention. Today marks the 2-year anniversary of the disappearance of billionaire Benjamin Harrington's son. I looked up. Benjamin Harrington stood on screen in a suit, face tight with exhaustion. Behind him, a glass building with a massive logo. Harrington. The screen changed to a photo of a smiling 7-year-old in a school uniform. My stomach dropped. The boy on that screen looked exactly like Thomas. I turned slowly to the bench beside me. Thomas was bent over his worksheet, unaware. The anchor said the name again. Thomas Harrington. Missing for 2 years. A $5 million reward. A phone number flashed on the screen. My eyes memorized it without trying. I sat down slowly, like my legs had forgotten how to work. 2 years missing. 2 years with me. If I called, he'd go home. He'd have everything I couldn't give him. But if I called, they might see me as the kidnapper. A broke man with no paper trail, no proof, and a child who showed up on his porch one night and never left. Thomas looked up and noticed my face. Uncle Alex? What's wrong? I forced a smile. Nothing, just tired. He turned the paper toward me. Can you check this one? I leaned over his homework with shaking hands. A secret sat in my throat, heavy and dangerous. I didn't know how to tell the truth without losing everything. Monday morning, I showed up at Miguel's job site early. A 6-story office building being stripped and rebuilt. Dust in the air, tools everywhere. Men shouting over concrete echoes. Miguel handed me a hard hat and pointed me to the 3rd floor. Server room's going on 5, he said. We need clean electrical flow. I got to work fast. Running conduit, pulling wire, installing boxes. My hands remembered how to be useful. Miguel checked my work mid-morning. You're clean, you're fast. Keep it up. By lunch, I finished what he expected to take 2 days. Miguel handed me an envelope. 200 cash, he said. Advance so you can feed your kid. Payday's Friday. I stared at it. Thank you. Don't thank me, he said. Show up. That Friday, the school called. Thomas's bus was delayed. Someone had to pick him up. I couldn't leave the site. I asked Miguel for a favor. Bring him here, Miguel said. Keep him in the break area. Tell him not to wander. Thomas arrived nervous, looking up at the building like it could swallow him. You're going to sit right there, I told him. Do your homework and stay put. He nodded quickly. I continued working, but I kept checking the stairwell like danger might come walking down. Near the end of the shift, the energy changed. Men lowered their voices. Miguel's tone was careful. A black luxury car pulled up outside. A man stepped out wearing an expensive suit, shoes too clean for a construction zone. He walked like he owned everything around him. Because he did. Miguel greeted him. Mr. Cross? His name is Warren Cross. He moved through the building with cold eyes, pointing out flaws like he enjoyed finding them. On the 3rd floor, he stopped at my panel. This layout is inefficient, he said. I kept my voice respectful. It meets code and balances load for the server room. Miguel, Warren said calmly. Is this man arguing with me? Miguel shot me a look. I swallowed my pride. No problem, sir, I said. I'll redo it. Warren's mouth curved slightly. Good. Later, I went down to get Thomas. Warren was already there. He was crouched in front of Thomas, studying his face with the kind of focus that didn't belong in a casual moment. I stepped between them. "Is there a problem?" I asked. Warren stood slowly. "Who's the boy?" "My nephew," I said quickly. "He's quiet," Warren said, eyes still on Thomas. "What's his full name?" My pulse kicked hard. "Thomas," I said, keeping my voice steady. Warren's gaze sharpened. "Thomas what?" "Cole," I lied. Warren held my gaze too long, not accusing, just measuring. "Interesting," he said, like he was filing it away. He walked toward the door and pulled out his phone. He made a call outside by his car, eyes drifting back through the glass toward Thomas. Thomas tugged my sleeve as we left. "Why did that man look at me like that?" "He's the owner," I said. "He was just curious." Thomas shook his head slightly. It felt like he knew me. That night, I couldn't sleep, because Warren Cross didn't look curious. He looked certain, and if he was certain about Thomas, it meant our secret wasn't safe anymore. 4 weeks into Miguel's job, I was finally starting to breathe again. I'd stopped counting coins before every purchase. Thomas had stopped asking if we could get a real room soon, because he could see it in my face. Hope was back. That morning, I left Thomas at school like always. He hugged me before getting on the bus. "Be careful today," he said. "I'm always careful." He didn't smile. "Still, be careful." I promised him I would. At the site, I climbed the scaffolding to run a new line for overhead lighting. It was routine. My hands were steady. My mind was focused. Then the metal under my boot shifted. Not a small wobble, a hard, sudden drop, like the platform gave up. A bracket snapped with a sharp crack, and the world tilted. I remember the air. I remember my stomach rising. I remember the floor rushing up. I hit concrete and pain exploded through my left leg so fast my vision went white. I didn't even realize I was screaming until I heard myself. "Don't move!" someone shouted. Miguel's face appeared above me, panicked and angry at the same time. "Call 911!" "I can't afford an ambulance," I gasped, trying to sit up. The pain punched me back down. Miguel put his hand on my shoulder. "You can't afford not to go. Your leg is broken." I tried to argue, but everything went blurry. The last thing I saw was the gray ceiling above the site, and the thought that hit me like another fall. Thomas. The next thing I knew, I was in Miguel's truck. Thomas was already in the back seat beside me, holding my hand. His face was white, eyes wide, lips pressed together like he was trying not to fall apart. He didn't need to say anything. The fear in his eyes said it all. "Uncle Alex," he whispered, voice shaky. "Please don't leave me." I forced myself to look at him. "I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." At the hospital intake desk, the nurse asked the question I dreaded. "Insurance?" "No," I said. She didn't react like she was surprised. She just typed something. "We'll treat you, but you'll be billed." I wanted to laugh. Billed, like that meant anything to someone who could barely keep food in a backpack. They took me back, set my leg, and put a cast on it from ankle to knee. When they finally wheeled me out, my head was foggy from pain medicine and my body felt heavy. Thomas stood up fast when he saw me, but he wasn't alone. An older woman stood beside him. Elegant coat, neat hair, calm eyes that looked kind but sharp at the same time. My brain connected the dots before I wanted it to. She held out her hand. "Alex Cole?" "Yes," I answered. "I'm Helen Harrington," she said gently. "I met your nephew earlier in the waiting area." Thomas looked between us, confused. She was asking me questions. he said quickly, like he was afraid he'd done something wrong. About school and what I like. She was nice. Helen's eyes stayed on me. I heard you don't have insurance. I'd like to cover today's costs. I stared at her. Why? She didn't answer directly. She looked at Thomas with something that almost looked like pain. Because, she said quietly, children shouldn't suffer because adults failed them. My mouth went dry. I didn't take her money as charity. I took it because Thomas was watching, and because refusing wouldn't change the bill. It would only add another disaster on top of the one already happening. Helen handed me a card. If you need resources, support, or answers, call me. I held the card like it might burn my skin. Before I could say anything else, she squeezed Thomas's shoulder lightly and walked away, disappearing into the bright hospital hallway like she belonged there. Miguel drove us back to the bus station. He looked exhausted, like the day had aged him. Warren called, he said, eyes on the road. He said you weren't on official payroll, so there's no workers' comp. He said it's not his problem. Of course he did. Miguel reached into his jacket and handed me an envelope. Here, this is $140 for the weeks you worked. $340 total plus the $200 advance I gave you weeks ago. I'm sorry, man. $340. A broken leg. No job. No steady income. Back at the station, Thomas helped me settle on the bench like he'd done it 1,000 times already, arranging our bags under my leg to keep it elevated. He looked up at me, trying to be brave. Are we going to be okay? I wanted to say yes, like it was easy. Instead, I said the truth I could manage. We're going to keep going. That's what we do. That night, we moved to the Harbor Street shelter because I couldn't keep shifting benches on crutches and pain. The shelter was loud, crowded, and unforgiving. Thomas took the top bunk. I took the bottom. He leaned over the edge before sleep, his face upside down. Good night, Uncle Alex. Good night. I didn't sleep. I stared at Helen's card until the numbers blurred. One call. One call could fix Thomas's life, but it could ruin mine. 3 days later, Warren Cross showed up outside the shelter. He stepped out of a black sedan like he was arriving at a business meeting, not a place where families went when they had nowhere else. Thomas froze beside me. Warren walked up slowly, smiling like he enjoyed seeing me helpless. Alex Cole, he said. I heard about your accident. Shame. What do you want? I asked. His eyes flicked to Thomas. Your nephew is still with you. Interesting. Thomas pressed closer to me, and I felt his hand slip into mine. Warren pulled out an envelope and handed it over. Inside was $500 and a note. Stay quiet. Stay invisible. Or I make one phone call and that boy disappears into the system. My blood turned cold. Warren leaned closer. You're on thin ice. Shelter records, school records. People notice things. If someone calls child services, they'll ask questions you can't answer. Why do you care? I snapped. His smile didn't move. Because I don't like surprises. And you look like a surprise. His gaze flicked to Thomas again. He walked back to his car, got in, and drove off like he'd just paid for silence. That was the moment I knew something. Warren Cross wasn't just a rich guy with an ego. He was connected to the reason Thomas was in my life. A week later, Miguel called. The renovation project is hosting a charity event Saturday. Warren's company is sponsoring it. They're offering $1,000 to attendees who've used local homeless services. They want photos, speeches, the whole thing. $1,000. I hated the idea. But rent deposits don't care about pride. We went. The community center looked brand new, polished floors, catered food, cameras everywhere. A coordinator pinned name tags on us like we were props. Warren took the microphone, speaking like he cared about people like me. "Tonight reminds us why community matters," he said. "People like Alex here fight every day for their family." I felt sick hearing him say my name like I was a marketing strategy. Thomas squeezed my hand and whispered, "Can we leave soon?" "After the stipend," I whispered back. Then the doors opened. Security came in first, and behind them was a man in a tailored suit with a face that looked like it had lived through too much pain. Benjamin Harrington. Helen walked beside him. My heart stopped. Helen scanned the room, and the second she saw Thomas, her face broke. She grabbed Benjamin's arm, pulling him forward. Thomas was reaching for a cookie when Helen's voice cracked behind him. "Thomas?" Thomas turned, confused. Benjamin took one look at him, and something in him collapsed. He dropped to his knees in front of Thomas like his body couldn't hold him up anymore. "My son," he whispered. "Oh my God. Thomas." Thomas stepped back, eyes wide with fear. "How do you know my name?" Helen's hands shook. "Benjamin, it's him. It's our Thomas." The room went silent. Then everything exploded. Benjamin's security called the police. Guests whispered. Cameras turned. Warren's face stayed calm, but his eyes were bright with something ugly. When I tried to move toward Thomas, security guards blocked me. "Wait," I said, voice rising. "I found him. He was abandoned." "Sir, step back," a guard ordered. Thomas broke free from Helen and ran toward me. "No!" he screamed. "Uncle Alex didn't take me. He saved me." A coordinator grabbed Thomas's shoulders to hold him, and the boy fought like a trapped animal, crying and reaching for me. Police arrived quickly. I was handcuffed and taken for questioning. Even though Thomas was screaming my name so loud, it felt like the building should crack. At the station, Detective Morrison listened to my story with the face of someone trained not to believe. She asked why I hadn't reported it sooner. She asked how it looked from the outside. Then Thomas refused to talk unless they let me go. "He saved me," Thomas told them. "The man who took me had a scar on his hand." Benjamin heard that detail and went still. "Gregory Marsh," he said quietly. "That's who took him." The detective pulled records. Gregory Marsh had a brother, Warren Marsh, alias Warren Cross. Then Morrison released me. "Stay available," she said. Benjamin asked to see me privately. He looked wrecked, like joy and rage were tearing him apart at the same time. "I thought you were the reason my son was gone," he said. "I was wrong." Thomas ran into my arms during that meeting, sobbing. "Don't leave," he begged. "I'm here," I promised. "I'm right here." Benjamin took a breath, steadying himself. "We're going to end this," he said. "Warren Cross has been in my life for years under a different name, smiling, pretending. We're going to make him confess." 2 days later, I walked back into the empty renovation building at night wearing a recording device. Warren waited inside, calm as ever. "I know who you are," I said. "I know about Gregory." Warren's smile faded. I pushed harder. I told him Gregory left Thomas with me, that Gregory wanted to confess, that I had evidence. Warren's face twisted. He stepped closer, voice low and furious. Gregory was weak. He was supposed to hold the boy so Harrington would sign over his company. He panicked and dumped him. He was going to ruin everything. "So you got rid of him," I said. Warren's eyes went flat. He made his choice. I made sure he couldn't talk. That was all the police needed. Lights flooded the building. Officers rushed in. Warren tried to back away, but he was surrounded. As they cuffed him, he looked at me with real hatred. "You think you're a hero?" he hissed. "That boy suffered because of you." I met his eyes. He survived because of me. Warren was arrested. Evidence was found at one of his properties confirming Gregory's fate. The truth finally had weight behind it. That night, Benjamin brought me to his home so Thomas could see me safe. The house was huge, but the moment Thomas ran into my arms, none of it mattered. Benjamin stood nearby, watching us like he was seeing the full story for the first time. "I can't rewrite what happened," he said, "but I can do the right thing now." He offered me a job in one of his companies. Real pay, real stability. I accepted on one condition: Thomas will stay in my life. Benjamin agreed. Months later, Thomas had 2 homes, one with blood, one with the man who carried him out of the cold. My parents sent a message after seeing the news. I didn't respond, because the hardest lesson I learned wasn't about money. It was about loyalty. Family isn't the people who share your name. Family is the people who don't shut the door when you're standing in the rain. Alex fought for 2 years to protect Thomas. You fought through this whole story to see them win. But you won't fight for 5 seconds to hit subscribe? There are more stories like this. More people who earned their revenge, and you're about to miss all of them. Subscribe right now. You owe it to yourself after sitting through this whole journey.